Good afternoon, everybody. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Brian Bellows, and I am the Regional Project Management Director over the Midwest region. Additionally, I do have some national responsibilities, including this turf feed initiative that we're going to talk about today. Before I jump into the slides, I wanted to give you a bit of a background on the reason that we're even doing this. Earlier this year, Veronica Bloodworth, head of the C&E organization for AT&T, put a directive out there to the turfing vendors that she wanted them to be able to provide true end-to-end deployment services. In other words, she wanted them to take on integration. In order to do that, because the turf vendors don't know anything about integration, in order to do that, the turf vendors are coming to the integration vendors, the OEM vendors such as Nokia, Ericsson, and some of our competitors out there in order to provide that. AT&T stated it in such a way that if the turf vendors weren't capable of providing the service, then their existing turfing footprint would be in jeopardy. So that's a very high priority for the turf vendors to be able to absorb this ability to provide true end-to-end services and integration. Ergo, the conversation with Nokia. So as we think about partnering with turf vendors, there's three things that we really have to take into consideration. And these are the same three things that we have to take into consideration working directly with AT&T. The first being cost. In order for us to remain profitable, because we're already at a basement level on our driver pricing, this has to be a pass-through service through, for the turf vendors. Taking on business such as the turf vendors are going to be, they're going to want to look for margin. So we have to find more efficient ways to do what we do on a daily basis in order to make our prices competitive, because we are competing. There are other vendors out there that are going to be doing the exact same thing that we're going to be doing with the turf vendors and trialing processes where we work directly with them. The second item is quality. We have to be able to provide a higher quality product. I believe that we can do that. We are the OEM vendor. We know the product better than anybody else. We know the software better than anybody else. Therefore, we should be able to put together a process, which we'll go over here on the next slide, a process that puts the best quality product on the table, both from a services perspective, but also from a hardware perspective. And third is interval. Interval is an enormous thing for turf vendors. It's one of the KPIs that they get measured on, how long it takes them to get from point A to point B. Introducing integration into there adds an additional aspect of interval into their total picture. So if we can provide them a process that takes that interval and shortens it and makes them look good to AT&T ultimately, that's going to be good for us, because then we will generate more work through the turf vendors as well. This slide will go over the process for us. This is a sample slide of a sample process of what we're using today with SAC Wireless in the Minnesota Northern Plains. It isn't a concrete process. It's very flexible. We can do a lot of different things with it with the turf vendors, and we have to keep that in mind when we're working with them. And it's not very different than what we do today. In some of the markets, we utilize what we call last day protocol. Some markets call it last day of construction. This particular side refers to it as last day of construction because it was for the Kansas City market. Either way, it is our first process. It's what we want to do. We start the process by eliminating the AT&T C&E project manager and working directly with the turfing project managers or construction managers. What this allows us to do is to get the information directly from the horse's mouth. We know their schedules better. We know the flexibility in them and how they shift and how they change. So that's going to be able to allow us to do a couple things. One, we're going to be able to manage our resources a little bit better. It will be more of a just-in-time type process where we're shifting our resources on a day-to-day basis. But two, it allows us also to understand what's coming down the pipeline so that we can be more proactive about some of the prerequisites, worksheets, design process, work order preload, those type of things that installation, that have to get completed prior to an actual integration effort, which we're going to propose a couple options when it comes to integration. So if we have this communication, with the turf vendors directly, this allows us to get our low-level design or our work orders completed in advance, but not too far in advance where we're having to worry about them aging or getting old or anything like that. We can work directly with the turfs to understand really when does tower work look like it's going to complete, because that's what we want to drive to, is tower work complete, as close to tower work as complete with our work orders as possible. Additionally, installation and commissioning. If there's product to be installed, we need to get out there and we need to install it. Because the goal is to have all of these prerequisites completed prior to getting to the integration phase or last day of tower work. Once we get our prerequisites done with our low-level design, our installation, our commissioning, if it's required on non-carrier ads, then we get into what is the joint process. What we're proposing as our go-to process is what we refer to as the last day collaborative effort, where we have our resources on site with their tower crews the last day of tower work, so that we can push all of the integration through with the tower work or with the tower crew on site, vetting out almost 100% of the possibility of them having to return and do a tower work. One of the biggest things that adds to our quality, our cost, and our interval is this phase right here. In the legacy model, we go back and forth when we're trying to do integration between us, the RITC, the turfing vendor, AT&T. It's really a vicious cycle that kills our interval. If we can be on site collaboratively while they do their RFM tower work, we can help them. We can interface directly with the RITC, which eliminates any sort of he said, she said type thing where we can directly interface with the RITC and make sure that the tower crew is doing exactly what the RITC needs them to do. And then after we vet out all of the tower work, scope of work, we move directly into the VOLTE call testing. What the VOLTE call testing allows us to do is to help vet out any additional maybe fiber swaps or things like that on the tower. RET WOW, we're proposing the RET WOW process as opposed to the RET worksheet process, simply because, again, it eliminates any of that variability depending on the tower crew. The less we can depend on the tower crew, the better off we are. And then we roll right into our RF optimization 911 testing, in which currently we're doing the enhanced shakedown testing with the installation and the field force crew. We want to continue to do that in this model simply because it vets out MIMO swaps, and again, taking away just an incremental percentage of the risk of a tower crew having to go back to site. And then we'd roll right into 911. And again, we've got a couple options there as well. If we're drive-based, our optimization team can do the 911. If we had the work order in place and AT&T met their deliverable of having the Intrado trunking completed, we can even have our field force do the 911 if we wanted to. So what this does is this is referenced as a 0-day interval. In other words, from tower work complete to integration complete and ready for optimization, 0 days. Currently, we're running at about 28 days. That's best case scenario. Worst case scenario is closer to 60 days. So this is a dramatic decrease in interval. And as interval goes down, cost goes down, quality goes up. The nice flexibility of the last day collaborative effort is that if for some reason the communication isn't there, or we run into a gating item on the site that we can't complete, we can immediately fall back to the last day protocol. And last day protocol is being utilized in a lot of the markets today. They understand it, and it allows us to work still at a much decreased interval, but separately to where we're not taking on a lot of risk of having resources sit around and do nothing. I've got a matrix here of responsibilities, and again, this is a snapshot of one vendor, one market. We are extremely flexible on how we need to approach this, and that's how we're going to win the business, is making sure that whatever the turf vendor needs, we can adapt to that particular model. So execution, what are our must-haves? How do we make this happen? There's a few things. So our first must-have is the Nokia PM must have daily communication with the Black and Veatch this is Black and Veatch, but it's turfing construction managers. That intimate communication is key. If we don't have that, it's very, very difficult to be successful. Additionally, the Nokia PMs must have a clear communication to the RITSI managers. So when we schedule this type of work with the Remote Installation Test Center, we have to be very clear on what the expectations are. What are we doing out on the site? Who will be out on site? And what is our target goal? Is it integration complete? Is it clear troubleshooting? If we lay those details out, the RITSI will be in a much better position to support us. The Nokia PM must identify tower vendor point of contact. Again, communication. If we know who we're working with, what their phone number is, that will help us, the RITSI communicate directly with them. It'll help our field force communicate directly with them. Nokia field force must have communication directly with the turf vendor. So this is in the last day collaborative effort. Last day protocol or last day of construction, not so important, but last day collaborative effort, extremely important that we hook our field force up with the tower vendor. Nokia field force vendor must drive 0-day interval. This is where you guys come in. This is extremely important that our field force representatives are out there and we're capitalizing on the fact that they're out there to help push to a 0-day interval. Tower vendors are going to want to walk away. And the second they hit a bump, they want to leave. We have to make sure that we don't allow them to do that. We have to make sure that we are driving to integration complete while we're on site. The Nokia RITSI manager must identify market-specific RITSI folks, engineer and technician. Now, this is a trend that we're going to, and Vic Wilkins is already working on this for the AT&T account, where we will assign specific engineers and specific technicians within the RITSI to a geographic location, a market, so that turf vendors get comfortable with them and the technicians can get very intimately aware of the market needs. And lastly, we have to be flexible. And I said this, we have to be flexible in seeking innovative solutions. We are the ones that are driving this. Yes, the turf vendor is coming to us saying, okay, we need a solution. And we need to find a way to give them a solution that is profitable for us and addresses those three elements of cost, quality, and interval. And I believe that with either last day collaborative effort or last day protocol, both of those solutions give the turf vendors exactly what they need and ultimately answers AT&T's request of being able to push all of the services through one particular vendor, that being the turf vendor. So in closing, I just want to thank you for coming today and listening to this. I think that we are in control of our own destiny here. We've got a very good process. We've been utilizing it in multiple markets with different turf vendors at this particular point. They're all very happy with what we're doing. I think if we can continue to tweak where we need to tweak, make it flexible for the markets that require some adjustments into our particular process, we can definitely become the turf vendor's primary source for their